The sterile scent of antiseptic lingered in the air as Richard Hayes, one of the most powerful CEOs in New York City, stood motionless by the hospital window. The skyline glittered with life beyond the glass, but inside the room, time had stopped. Machines beeped in rhythmic monotony beside a frail young woman, his daughter Amelia. She was 23, a pianist once celebrated across concert halls for her brilliance. Now her hands lay motionless against white sheets, her eyes hollow, gazing at nothing. It had been 6 months since the accident. A drunk driver had run a red light, crushing the side of her car. The surgeons had saved her life, but her spinal cord was damaged beyond repair. The doctor's words still echoed in Richard's mind. She'll never walk again. Money could not change that verdict. Richard had offered millions to the best hospitals across Europe, even chartered a private jet for an experimental treatment in Switzerland. But every door closed with the same quiet pity. Amelia had withdrawn into herself, refusing therapy, refusing visitors, refusing to speak to him. The only sound she made now was the faint click of her wheelchair whenever the nurses moved her. Richard, who commanded empires with a single phone call, found himself powerless before his daughter's silence. 3 floors below, a janitor was mopping the corridor. His name was Daniel Carter, a man in his mid-30s with tired eyes but a quiet steadiness about him. He had once worked as a physical therapist, but after his wife's sudden death from cancer, he had left the profession to raise his son, Ethan, on his own. Life had forced him to trade clinic rooms for janitor halls. Yet, there remained a gentleness in his demeanor that made even the most hurried nurses nod at him with warmth. That morning, Daniel overheard a conversation between 2 nurses near the elevator. "She's refusing treatment again," one said softly. "Mr. Hayes is at his wit's end." "The poor girl," the other replied. "To have everything and then lose it all? I can't imagine." Daniel said nothing, but the name Amelia Hayes stirred something inside him. He remembered seeing her once on television, a prodigy whose fingers danced like magic across piano keys. He paused, then continued mopping, but the thought stayed with him. Later that evening, as he emptied trash bins near Amelia's room, he saw her father through the glass wall, head buried in his hands. It was not the face of a CEO. It was the face of a broken man. Daniel hesitated, then gently knocked on the open door. Richard looked up, startled. "Yes? Can I help you?" Daniel gripped the handle of his mop. "No, sir. Just finishing my rounds. I didn't mean to interrupt." Richard nodded absently, but his eyes flickered with something like relief, someone to break the heavy silence. "It's all right. She doesn't talk to anyone anymore." Daniel looked at Amelia, her face turned away, pale and distant. "Maybe she just needs someone to listen," he said quietly. Richard gave a bitter laugh. "You think listening will make her walk again?" "No," Daniel replied. "But it might make her want to try." Something in his tone made Richard pause. It was not arrogance, not pity, just conviction. "Who are you?" Richard asked. "Daniel Carter. I clean the floors here." "And you think you can help my daughter?" Daniel hesitated, then met his gaze. "Maybe. I used to be a physical therapist before. Life changed. I know what it's like to lose hope. Sometimes it takes someone who understands broken things to help rebuild them." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the machines filled the room. Finally, Richard exhaled. "If you can make her speak, I'll give you whatever you want." Daniel shook his head. "I'm not here for money, Mr. Hayes. Just a chance." The next morning, Amelia woke to find a stranger sitting by her window. He was in plain hospital scrubs, quietly reading a worn children's book. Her voice was fa. 6 months after her recovery, the Hayes mansion felt alive again. Laughter returned to its marble halls, and music once more echoed from the grand piano. Amelia Hayes had become a symbol of resilience. Her story featured in magazines and television interviews. People called her the miracle pianist, though she never claimed the title. She knew her recovery had not been a miracle. It had been the result of pain, perseverance, and a man who refused to give up on her when she had already given up on herself. That man, Daniel Carter, had returned to his quiet life. He still worked part-time at the hospital and spent his evenings helping other patients in physical therapy, refusing all the offers Richard Hayes had made him. "I don't work for money anymore," he had said. "I work for purpose." Yet something unspoken lingered between him and Amelia. something that neither of them dared to name. It was late autumn when Amelia visited Daniel's small apartment for the first time. Ethan opened the door before she could knock twice. "Miss Amelia, Dad made pancakes," he exclaimed, his face glowing. Amelia laughed, stepping inside. The apartment was modest. Worn wooden floors, walls covered with Ethan's drawings, and a piano in the corner that had clearly seen better days. She ran her fingers across the keys. "This one's a little out of tune," she said. Daniel looked up from the kitchen. "A little? That piano's older than me. I'm afraid it's been through some things." "So have I," she replied softly, glancing at him. He smiled, and for a long moment, silence filled the room. Not awkward, but warm. Over breakfast, Ethan talked nonstop about school and dinosaurs, showing her a handmade volcano project made of cardboard. When he finished, he looked at her seriously. "Dad says you're famous now. Are you really?" Amelia chuckled. "Some people think so." Ethan frowned. "That's weird. You don't look famous. You look nice." Daniel groaned. "Ethan, that's not how compliments work." Amelia laughed again, the sound bright and unguarded. "It's the best compliment I've had all week." In the weeks that followed, Amelia began to visit often. Sometimes she came to help Ethan with his schoolwork. Other times, she brought dinner for the two of them, claiming she was testing new recipes. The truth was simpler. She felt peace in that small apartment, a feeling she had not known in years. One evening, as they sat together watching Ethan build a Lego tower, Amelia said quietly, "Do you ever think about going back? To physical therapy, I mean. You were incredible at it." Daniel hesitated. "I've thought about it, but things are complicated. After my wife died, I couldn't face patients anymore. Helping you was different. It wasn't a job, it was personal." She turned toward him. "Then maybe it's time to make it personal again. You gave me back my life, Daniel. Imagine how many others you could help." He studied her for a moment. "You really think I could?" "I don't think," she said, her voice steady. "I know." That night, something changed in Daniel. He submitted applications to several rehabilitation centers and, within weeks, was offered a position as a senior therapist at Hayes Medical Institute, the very hospital where he had once cleaned floors. When he told Amelia, her eyes filled with pride. "You're finally where you belong." "So are you," he said quietly. One afternoon, as Daniel worked with a young soldier recovering from a spinal injury, Richard Hayes entered the room. The CEO had always admired Daniel's humility, but now he saw him in a new light, commanding, patient, and deeply respected by his team. When the session ended, Richard approached him. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," he began. "You don't owe me anything, sir," Daniel replied. Richard shook his head. "No, you gave me my daughter back. That's not something money can measure, which is why I want to propose something." He handed Daniel a folder.